So let's talk about boosting your car quickly. There's a couple things to note with doing it. So the first thing, obviously, boosting is positive to positive, negative to negative. Hooking it up can make the difference though, and there is a good way to hook it up and a backup way, although most people kind of go the backup. I'll explain that in a bit. But let's talk about it. Now, before you hook up the car, the first thing you want to do is secure your booster cables. The reason you're doing this is because when you hook this to the positive and this to the negative, the other side, if they're touching, will produce a ton of sparks. So you're going to want to be extra careful. The good way to do that is to try and just connect these together. So, which is just clamping this one onto the wire. Now you want to do, now you see the wires, because they're meant to clamp on metal, they have sharp bits. You want to make sure if you're putting this through, you're not putting the sharp bit on here, because it could theoretically, possibly, puncture the wire. And of course, then you're going to just have the same problem there. You're going to have the power converting through, and it's going to create a lot of sparks and issues. So once you secure the side, this is the side that's going to go on the dead car. So that's the side you secure. That, all I'll do is I'll hook up the positive first, and then you hook up the negative. Now some people will say do positive, negative, negative, positive. They have different ways of doing it. To doing it to the booster car, this is the car that's being used as the booster, really doesn't matter too much. It's really the other car that it matters more. But we're just going to hook that up here. And again, positive, that's the positive side, right? The plus. And the negative, of course, always is color-coded as well. And for those wondering what happens when the positive and the negative touch, well then, you get it, right? That's why you don't do it. Okay, and then the next thing you do is you hook up to the dead car. So what you do is positive, you hook it up, battery or anything. Ground, you hook up to either if it has a ground point, or you hook up to something like a bolt that goes directly to the chassis. Not something that goes into plastic or something, but something that goes directly to the chassis. Then you start the dead car, the live car. Sorry, my apologies. The live car. Let that run for a bit and let it charge the system, charge the battery. Once it charges for a bit, you shut off the other car and then attempt to start this one. So you charge it up using the other car, shut it off, and the reason you shut off is because if there's any electrical issues, you don't want to backfeed that if you can avoid it. And after you've charged it for a couple minutes, you know, let's say revving the engine a bit or anything, you give the car a quick start, see what happens. If it doesn't, you move on to the next thing, whereas you start the car back up, the other car, donor car, rev it a bit, and then while it's running, you give it a start. And if that doesn't work, which could happen, normally it's a pretty good indication there may be bigger problems in the battery, but you can then go positive to positive, negative to negative. That should be a last resort thing, and I always advise exercise caution. You don't see it a lot these days where you get problems where cars can, well, the batteries can explode, but it could still happen if you've got a cracked cell, a cracked casing, and some of the cells, the fumes are leaking out. So that's it as far as boosting. Hopefully that gives you some quick tips.